I heard there's been some inconsistencies with meds intended for your patients.
What?
Frank, have you been helping yourself to benzos from the ER?
Yeah, I've been stealing blood, too.
I asked you a question.
Wait, are you serious? What are you doing? Really? Santos. Whatever the hell she told you is bullshit.
I didn't mention Santos.
You didn't have to. I told you, she is trouble.
Have you ever taken a patient's medication?
This is insane. This is completely fucking
I
insane.
need you to open your locker.
Yeah, right.
Open your locker.
You're gonna
Open your fucking locker, or I will have security smash it open. Is the imprint code on these pills going to match Louis' Librium? Go home, Frank.
No, it's not like you think. You remember whenever I helped my parents move, I was too cheap to pay for movers. I hurt my back. I told you that. You teased me about it. Remember? Well, our own Dr. Hagen prescribed me some pain meds and muscle relaxers. I was just weaning myself off. It was just for maintenance. I'm done. Robbie, come on. You know me, Robbie. You know me, man. I'm sorry. I fucked up. I was trying to...
What, steal pills?
No, it's not like you don't understand.
I don't fucking understand.
It's not like you think. I'm not high. You've seen what I do, Robbie. Could a drug addict do what I do?
Apparently. I just fucking let him.
Welcome back to What's On Tonight, a podcast with elaborate, quirky, and unpredictable conversations about TV, movies, and more. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
Today we are covering The Pitt, Season 1, Episode 10, titled 00P.M. Please note, this is a spoiler-filled podcast. So if you haven't watched the episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, come back and check us out after you finish watching. Episode 10 was written by Simran Baidwan, who also wrote Episode 5, and was directed by Damian Marcano.
Ooh, he's back.
He's back. Who also directed Episodes 3 and 6. Would you care to share the synopsis of this episode for us, Mandy?
I will. And as we discussed just before we started recording, Becky put together this synopsis for us. We wanted to do something a little bit longer this week and try this out for the synopsis. So she let me know that this pretty much came verbatim from Wikipedia. Robbie treats Dana for what turns out to be minor injuries, but the nursing team is left shaken by the incident, and Gloria is unable to allay their concerns. A whole body burn victim is brought into the ER in critical condition, and Whitaker tries to support the victim's emotionally devastated wife, despite a pessimistic outlook from Langdon. Meanwhile, McKay's son Harrison arrives in the ER alongside his father, her ex-partner Chad, who's been injured in a skateboarding accident. McKay refers to Chad's new girlfriend, Chloe, as part of the reason why she wears an ankle monitor. King and Mohan bond as they treat a young stroke victim, but King becomes concerned she lacks the special sauce to become a great doctor. Javadi becomes angry with the father of a teenager who is hit in the eye by a baseball, feeling he's prioritizing his son's baseball career over his health concerns. Tensions continue between Santos and Langdon, with Robbie struggling to mediate. After Santos tells Robbie her concerns about the Librium, Robbie investigates Langdon's locker and finds several stolen doses. Livid, Robbie sends Langdon home.
Only thing I disagree with in this is I don't think Robbie struggled to mediate. I think he did a phenomenal job. But that was a very nice breakdown from Wikipedia.
Yeah, I think that Robbie, it wasn't yet another burden on Robbie's shoulders. But yes, I think he did a great job mediating that entire thing. I was proud of him.
Well, I loved this episode. It was so good. I give it 5 horrifying eyeball procedures out of 5.
Becky, oh, so many times I wanted to scream at you
I know.
through this entire.
And so many times I'm like, oh, Mandy's gotta love this
We
one.
were talking before we started recording about maybe some fun things we're going to add into the format, and maybe we should put in how many times did I want to break up with Becky this week? The answer's 14 for this episode.
To that I say, you're still
I'm
here.
stuck with you forever, but oh God, it was a wonderful episode. Again, I just can't imagine having an episode in this series that I'm like, it's whatever. It was a great episode, possibly the grossest episode so far.
For sure. All right, so we'll dive into specific show moments, and I would like to start with Vera, the stroke patient. First thing I want to say is to all you gamers out there, I believe this actually happened to someone at some point for them to get this story. I want friends like gamers who notice when someone isn't there and literally do a phone tree to find that person and get them help. I thought that was wonderful.
I've read stories about that in the past, and I want to say it's happened multiple times. They've been the ones to alert somebody. And with the society that we live now, where so many people being more and more insular and most of their friendships being online, not all people, but especially kids that are in the gaming community. So that's one of the positives of that. Well, you may never see these people in real life, but they become very, very real friends. Did they diagnose why she had the stroke yet?
If they did, I didn't notice it. Mohan said a lot of stuff. Not a lot of it made sense, so I'm not sure, to be honest.
That was a very medical terminology intensive part of the script this week, and I watched 3 times to try to pick up why exactly she was there, and I don't think they ever said. Maybe they will next week.
Yeah. I felt really bad for the patient. King and Mohan were trying to figure out what's going on and having their little back and forth conversation. It always makes me think of that Pink Floyd song, if you've ever watched Dark
Side of the Moon?
Yes, where the dude, he can't speak or can't move, but he can hear and see everything that's going on around him. That's such a fear of mine. And I felt that patient's anxiety on that. And I imagine, I think they said it was a minute before they found her with the help of the gamers. So it's just like, good God, how long did she lay there in her home, scared to death?
Did I ever tell you that I found a stroke victim once when I was doing Meals on Wheels with Ava when she was a baby when we were in Charlotte?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was horrifying. Oof. And speaking of that fear of like being trapped in your body, that's exactly why I want a Viking funeral, because if I'm not really dead, you wrap me up in some furs, throw me out on a boat in a lake, and then you can like shoot flaming arrows, because my theory is that if I am not really dead, the flames will make me go, ow, and then everybody will be like, oh shit, she's not dead. But if I am dead, then I'm like right there in the water.
Yes, everyone listening, in the event of Mandy's passing, I invite you all to come to her Viking funeral. And if any of you actually know how to shoot a bow and arrow, because my theory is, yes, we'll get Mandy out there on the water, but she's probably going to float all the way to some mass ocean like the Gulf or the Atlantic Ocean before we get her lit.
It would be Old Hickory Lake, which is literally seconds from my house.
She just bumps up on somebody's dock, and then it's a whole thing. Oh my
gosh.
So yeah, y'all are welcome to Mandy's Viking funeral.
That is happening. That is happening. Back to the stroke patient. It was horrifying. Like her tongue swelling up like that. Oh my gosh. That looked so realistic.
Yeah, they do phenomenal work. The makeup artist and what are they called? The
special effects.
Unbelievable. I love Dr. Mehta. Every joke he told was just hilarious, but what a bright little cheesy ray of sunshine. But I really liked something that seemed so light, actually was a really cool moment for Dr. King when she asks Mohan, why is he telling these jokes? King is a so matter of the fact and to the point person. It's interesting to think that, yeah, she probably would find that weird. Why would you do that in such a serious medical setting? And I loved Mohan's response about laughter really being the best medicine, and the way that Mohan explained it in a very clinical way at first that King grasped. And then at the end, he comes in with the joke and King gets it and gives the answer, but then adjusts the answer to where it would be funny. And she's like, you see what I did there or whatever she says. I just loved that. Just another great shining moment for Taylor Dearden and her acting and to show us her growth.
I thought it was great. I loved so many things about that plot line. Watching her and Mohan work together, because you could think of them as the one that is overly empathetic and the one that needs to be more empathetic. But the way that they complement each other and the way that they treated that patient and they stopped and they adjusted and they listened to each other, it kind of reminded me of like me and you doing this podcast.
That's exactly what I was thinking watching that episode. I was like, that's a lot of me and Mandy.
You know, there are times you've had to like tell me, hey, we should do it this way next time or what have you. But it's like we collaborate together. Like she didn't get offended or upset, you know, like maybe Santos would have, somebody more hot-headed, when Mohan wasn't listening to her about intubating. And she acknowledged that she was right at the end of it. And Mohan was gracious about that and told her that, you know, I surprised myself. And I love that.
This is probably my favorite pairing of this episode. I like it when those two are paired up together. They're just natural together. And then I've got here their excitement when the patient wakes up was adorable. And I would absolutely love a side story where we get to see those two go out together, go out to dinner, go out and have a drink or something. They're just so fun to watch together. And then I also have here their differing opinions on intubation and then King's humility afterwards. But Mohan's genuinely kind response was flawless. They're such great doctors that are teaching in this hospital that they are not only teaching, but they're also learning. The last main note that I have for them before we get into Dr. Robbie's funny joke is the special sauce discussion. Mohan explaining Dr. Mehta's jokes and making a patient laugh, that's his winky finger special sauce. And King is just like, well, what's your special sauce? And Mohan's like, well, I like to spend time with my patients. I like to get to know them. And King is concerned she may not have a special sauce. And Mohan is just like, no, just keep doing you, keep being yourself, and you'll find it. I just love their chemistry and the way they complement each other. And I think Mohan is emerging as one of the best teachers. And I think Mohan is the perfect teacher for King.
If you were to ask Robbie, he might say that Mohan is a little bit too emotional and King maybe is a little too clinical. But really, I don't think either one of them is too anything. But the thing that I think they're both of their special sauce is, and what they complement each other so well on, is that they both deeply care. They both deeply, deeply care about their patients. And I think for King, one of the things that she does so well is adjust and adapt. I've heard people who are neurodivergent say that sometimes they feel like they don't fit in around other people. They can feel very clueless about some of the things that seem to come naturally, like jokes. But King has probably had to readjust how she adapts in social situations her entire life. So I think that what she does really well is that she takes direction, she takes in information like what Mohan told her to explain the joke. And once she has it logically in her head, she immediately starts applying that to being a better doctor. And I love that about her. I love that it could be just a struggle that could make her frustrated or bitter or withdrawn. But instead, because she is so passionate about giving the best care that she can to everybody, she just takes the new information and rolls with it. And I think that's what she does.
Yeah, very well said. Noah Wiley had so many great, tiny little comedic moments in this episode.
Yeah.
And when he comes out with a slow-mo, no mo, and he's like, sorry, Dr. Mehta's rubbing off on me.
I like the look on Mohan's face when he said that, like, is he messing with me?
Like, did I just basically get a compliment from the man who's been riding my ass all day? I loved it.
Yeah.
All right, anything else on Vera, King, and Mohan before we move on to the next main point?
No, that was really a fun part of a tense episode.
It was. Well, next up, which was also, I think, had some very great heartfelt moments, but also some very brought in a lot of humor into this episode, is Dr. McKay. Boy, her husband is a doozy. I am glad we got to meet him, and I think it was a nice touch to bring up his girlfriend, Chloe. I'm assuming it's his girlfriend, they're not married, that makes him his acai bowls every day. And McKay just pulls up her, pant leg, and he's like, well, I already apologized for that, because it's obvious his girlfriend is the reason why McKay is wearing that ankle bracelet.
Yeah, what's going on there? He reminded me of my high school boyfriend, just a perpetual man child, never going to grow up, never going to be
run around and desert you.
Yes.
Never going to make you cry. Never going to say goodbye.
He's the anti-Rick Astley. He's going to do all of those things every day to every woman he meets. He was gross. I wanted to thunk him in the head. I loved when he was on the propofol and they were messing with him.
I feel sad.
Like every woman that was working on that team has had her version of that dude. I am completely convinced. And they treated him exactly the way that he should be treated, like a giant kid.
Collins and Santos especially, but I've never seen Santos smile as much as I did during dealing with that dude. It was great.
Yeah, Santos isn't down with fuck-ass men anyway. So I loved the back and forth between the doctors and the nurses while they were straightening his leg, and just the eye rolls and all of that stuff. I do want to know what happened to Chloe. Like, how did Chloe end up getting McKay an ankle bracelet?
Yeah, I need more info about Chloe, and I already don't like her. But my favorite moment with him is when he's on the propofol and all sad, and he's like, what is, are they having sex? And then he starts talking about Mateo's hair, and I'm just like, oh man, see, Chad, why did you have to go and make yourself relatable? Because I too want Mateo's amazing hair. I loved him and his jealousy there. It's just, give all people you're in a relationship with a dose of propofol and have a series. It's like truth serum.
Yeah.
Let it all come out.
Oh man, I hope I'm never put on that, because
I hope you are, and I hope I'm sitting right next to you. Y'all, I will record. And I will let all y'all know me. Well, not that I don't already know.
I was going to say, honestly, I don't know that, I don't keep a lot hidden, so I don't know that it would be
I don't
very
think either
different.
one of us would learn anything new.
I'm constantly vomiting out information that nobody really wants to know. So it's and that's my special sauce. But I want to say something before we move past this moment, because
Please
I think
do.
that it was a brilliant piece of writing. You notice that when he was trying to act like a real dad for once, he just let his kid go skateboarding without a helmet and ends up in the ER. But when Mateo says he's going to go and get him some Takis, he's like, not too much sugar. Like suddenly he's dad of the year.
And she's like, says the guy who eats Captain Crunch for breakfast.
And then he says, not anymore. Chloe makes me an acai bowl. That distinction of a woman makes my breakfast for me, I thought that was just a brilliant piece of writing, that if there wasn't a woman there to take care of him as if he were a child, he would be eating Captain Crunch, probably straight out of the box, probably pouring milk in the box and eating it.
I just want to say to all the Captain Crunch eaters out there, there's nothing wrong with Captain Crunch. It's delicious. No crunch berries. I only like...
What?
I don't like the crunch berries.
Crazy. Crunch berries are just little tiny colored versions of the squares.
No, they're not. They're fruity flavored. I don't want the fruity. I want the... Just give me a block of corn syrup and let me chew on it.
Right. Whatever that flavor. I guess it is corn syrup flavor. Yeah, right. In the middle of hating on him, I started thinking about having a big box of Captain Crunch and pouring the milk directly in. And I'm not going to lie, that actually sounds pretty dope. But still, I love that distinction of a woman had to make his breakfast for him like he's not a grown-ass man.
I think her child's reaction when she's like, since your dad's going to be, out of commission for a while, what do you think about coming to stay with me? That, like, if a kid puts down his electronic device to hug you, there's that means something. And I hope we get more story into why he reacted that way. I don't think he's being abused. I think Chloe might be a little bit of a nutcracker, so to speak, and it's probably not a very chill environment for him, but it's so obvious how much he loves his mom and how much he misses being with her on a regular basis. So I just love that brief moment, but it did make me wonder, where is that reaction coming from?
Yeah, and just through context, the little bit of context that we got and the couple of scenes he was in, I assumed he's basically being raised in a teenager's party pad, that he's, instead of being parented, he's just hanging out with very little rules and structure. And as anybody who's ever parented a child knows, they might push back on structure and rules, but especially at the age, that tween age that kid is, they need it. They need it and they want it. They want it even if they don't know that they want it. And I just assumed that it's probably just A, missing his mom, and B, the fact that his dad is a giant man child and there's no one in charge. So I didn't think about the Chloe part of it. It may be that she is also unpleasant to him. I just really thought it was probably mostly just missing his mom.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's the biggest part of it, but it was a very touching moment. All right. So this next point about McKay and Robbie, if you don't mind, I'm just going to read this entire point and then we can break it down. So I wrote down, McKay did call the cops. Robbie knew she made the right call. You could tell by how exasperated he was after she pointed out those girls' lives are not less important than the other guys. And I loved her confidence in her choice. And she says, I can live with this. And now you can too. And then Robbie's response to her surprise that he let her do that procedure with the baseball player. And here's his response. Am I still pissed that you went behind my back? Absolutely. And if you ever do it again, you can bet your ass that I will bench you. But this is a teaching hospital and teachers can still learn stuff. And I thought he was talking about her. But then he goes on to say, I saw a sad, confused boy, and that's all I thought about. I did not think about enough about those girls. And then she gets that, smile of recognition on her face, and then it's done.
That, I wanted to clap. You had an honest adult conversation where you actually, I love that she didn't fold there, that she stood up for herself. And I love that Robbie finally was receptive to what she was trying to say and acknowledged his own bias in that moment. But really, just as somebody that consumes television and reading a lot, so many times in plot points, there are times where you're reading and you think, if only these two people would have an adult conversation.
Yeah.
And honestly, in life. So I loved that it was a real, honest conversation where information was exchanged and people saw each other's point of views, and it cleared it up. Instead of having secret resentment or backbiting or anything else, those two people gave each other the respect of honesty, and they heard what they were saying. So it was just refreshing as a plot point to see that.
It was so great.
Yeah. I love McKay, man. I love her more and more every episode just because she's so real.
It's so funny that you say that, because it's every episode, 7 times during the episode, I'm like, yeah, that's my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
And then
it's hard.
Next scene, I'm like, no, you're my favorite character.
Yeah.
But I love that because it's a testament to the casting. And if they don't get nominated for and or win an Emmy for ensemble cast, something is wrong in this world. But anyway, she is definitely currently in my top 5 of people. That may change next week. I don't know.
Same. I know every time I say no, that's my favorite, or that I see myself in that person, or I see us in that person, because not only, we're going to get to, I don't want to get too far ahead, but I saw us in Mohan and King, but I also saw us in Collins and Dana later on, which I called you to tell you that was so us.
That was so us.
Especially this week.
Yeah. All right, so a couple of more points on McKay. The baseball player, oh my God, that eye procedure. Every time Javati stays on her feet during one of those, that one almost made me crumble. And I was sitting on my bed watching it. And I was like, whoa, that was wow.
Mm-mm.
But I love that she's She didn't jump in to like get a super close look, but she held on. And I'm so glad that a trope isn't going to be that she faints during
Every time.
every episode or every procedure.
That's a good call, Becky. I didn't even think about the fact that Giovanni actually has the same aversion to nasty medical grossness as I do, and that she worked her way through it this time. So that's growth. Good for her.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. My hands are like over my eyes and I'm cringing like I just saw the most disgusting thing I've ever seen because I had. It was nasty.
It's eyeballs. It's because I mean it's yeah, that's what got me is I'm like, that's your eyeball. And oh yeah.
That's the second gross eyeball thing that I've consumed this week. There was a story.
No.
No, you're gonna have to hear it
No,
because I had
I
to
don't
watch
want to
that.
hear it. La 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 la.
Two brothers. One of them had a medical episode, killed his brother this week, and ate his eyeball. Ate his eyeball.
You're welcome, listeners. Thank Mandy for that.
No, thank Becky.
No, thank the Pitt. I didn't go on and be like, ooh, let's watch somebody get their eyeball drained today.
No, but you love all that grossness. Ugh.
The next thing I have is I really like Giovanni's bedside manner with the patient. And I think it's really good from a writing perspective that they are putting her with younger patients
Mm-hmm.
because she's so young. And, you know, listening to them go back and forth and McKay acknowledging, well, we've got a prodigy of our own here. And I'm glad it was very unprofessional, but I'm super glad that she basically told the dad, chill the F out, worry about your kid, not the baseball game. But my favorite part outside of that was the way McKay handled it and the way she showed understanding to Giovanni and why she reacted the way she did, but also still teaching her the proper way to go next time.
So my husband is a travel baseball coach. He's coached my son basically from the time he was 5. Jackson quit playing a couple of years ago, but kind of coaches with his dad now a little bit, and enjoys that side of it more, largely because my son is incredibly introverted and it can be a really stressful thing for kids, even if you've got a lot of talent. My husband is not that dad. He has to deal with that dad all the time. But even being more supportive and not a parent that's trying to put that kind of pressure on and just performing at that level can be very, very hard on young kids. And so I have met that dad hundreds of times over the last 12 years of my son playing baseball. And every single time I have met him, and he's been a woman a lot of the time because baseball moms can be just as bad. I have wanted to throttle them. But to your point, most of the time, they are not cartoon villains. They're people who love their kids and they genuinely want the best for their kid. They just don't understand how damaging to the psyche it can be to have a parent make you feel like your most valuable asset to them is how well you can play a child's game. Because very, very few of them, even phenomenally talented kids, are going to go on to play college ball, and even fewer of them are going to go on to play in the majors. So the thing I love about sports, and the thing that I really loved about watching my husband coach my kid, but also all the other kids he's coached over the years, is that he genuinely understands that point. And he's not trying to make the next MLB All-Stars. He's trying to give these kids what he got from sports, which is a great work ethic, an understanding that you can struggle at something, but then you can persevere with enough dedication and practice, and one game isn't the end of the world, but you take those and you make you a better and stronger person. And I have seen that make such a difference, and those kids take those lessons and they translate them into all these other fields in their lives, and they go on to be better, more successful people. Unless you have these kids that are eventually broken down because the parents, they stop seeing a child and start seeing the next Derek Jeter. I really felt Giovanni's frustration, and I was really proud of her when she put him in his place. But I also want to say, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but Ava has a big lump on her forehead to this day that she's still very bitter about because she got hit playing softball. It happens a lot. Kids get hit a lot playing softball and baseball. And my daughter is not incredibly athletic, and she got hit in the head once. And we genuinely thought it was no big deal. So we didn't take her to the hospital. And now she's got this big goose egg on her head for the rest of her life.
Yeah, I never noticed it.
You wouldn't most of the time. Most people don't, but Ava does. And I hear about it a lot, about how she should have been taken to the doctor. And she's not wrong. And I'm telling this story to say that I have to give a little grace to that dad, because it's just like any other part of parenting. A lot of times you don't know how you've screwed up until after the fact. And all you can really do is learn from it and try to move on. So hopefully this dad will learn a lesson and heard what Javati said, and won't be such a shithead to his kid going forward.
Yeah. McKay made a good point that, you know, a lot of people don't know how to deal with stressful situations like this, especially your son, you know, who runs the risk of losing his sight in one eye. And I give grace to that dad that, you know, he was just reacting the only way he knew how to, but that did not in any way mean he does not love and care for his son. But, you know, a lot of times when you're looking in the face of something like that, you are looking everywhere else but at the severity of the situation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put that. We made a bad choice then. And sometimes, like you said, that comes from a place of just not wanting to believe that something so scary and awful could happen to your kid.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into if we're going to say the meat of the episode, I'm going to say this would be the prime rib of the episode.
Ugh.
My first major thought on this is I feel like they had, either it was by choice or not, I feel like this was the first time I really noticed how paranoid Langdon was. You know, when he saw Santos talking to Robbie and automatically assumed it was about him. And then, you know, it showed throughout the remainder of that hour of the shift, you know, how he reacted to Collins and the nurses giving him grief. I felt like he was looking over his shoulder a lot, like looking for something to happen. And this was the one thing I noticed the most is, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, but overcompensating because of his nervousness. What I mean by that is I have a tendency to do that. When I did, you know, I was a good kid. My level of getting in trouble was, you know, you're talking in class or stupid stuff. But when I knew at dinner my parents were going to get a phone call, I knew it was coming, I was overly cheerful or overly talkative because I knew I was in trouble. And like when Robbie says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" towards the, you know, in their last conversation, he's like, "Sure, boss man, for you, I could give you however many seconds." I saw Langdon in a very different light this episode. That was a long roundabout way of saying that.
Oh yeah, that little shuck and jive where he's like, "Yeah, I got 2 seconds for you, buddy." That very much I could see you were talking about how you would get overly cheerful. It reminded me of my son, Jackson. He does that when he knows that he's about to get in trouble for something. It's always a dead giveaway for me when he comes home and he's being much more cheerful and chipper and talkative, that there's something that's about to hit the fan. And I noticed that too. But I've clocked him being paranoid a few different times.
You've pointed it out, but I saw it as confidence. But now, and I can't wait to go back and do the rewatch. I want this to be one of the main things. One of the big points that we talk about is once we know everything that we know and we go back and start watching over, I want to look for those hidden clues.
Well, it could have gone either way, because that's the thing about this show, is that they sometimes misdirect you into thinking that it's going to go one direction and not another. So it really could have gone either way.
So going into his first conversation with Robbie, I thought it was interesting that he goes only after he saw Santos talking to Robbie did he make the choice to go to Robbie and say Santos is a problem, which I think was his first misstep. Because if he'd have just shut up
Weasel
and just trusted Robbie that he would come to him if there was a problem, and to trust that Santos, when she said it wasn't nothing, but it was just about a patient, this might not have happened. But here's the things he said about Santos to Robbie, that she cherry picks her patients, which so do you, Langdon. She isn't a team player.
Neither are you.
She gave Whitaker a shitty nickname, which you know how I feel. That one annoyed me. Harassing Javati about getting a recommendation from her mom. And he said, and I quote, "I'm the only one calling her out on it. so she has an axe to grind. And then he goes on to talk about how Robbie has told him 1 weak link and this place goes to shit. And considering what we find out about him in the episode, yeah, wow, that was a bad analogy to use because unfortunately Robbie had no choice but to throw that back in their face. So, do you have any thoughts about his first conversation with Robbie?
Predominantly, I feel like I love that they went there with this plot point because I feel like this really highlights the sexism that some people are exhibiting, and a lot of them women. And I'm so shocked by that. The internalized misogyny that I'm seeing like on social media about the character of Dr. Santos. Because again, I am biased towards her because I think, she reminds me a lot of me when I was younger. Somebody that's got a lot of walls and defensiveness. It's not okay. It's not right. Like for instance, when he said she gave that shitty nickname to Javati when was it Javati or Whitaker that he pointed out? I don't know because I think she give them both a shitty nickname.
But he just pointed out Whitaker's.
But he pointed out Whitaker, right? But Langdon has done things like that throughout the entire show. Like periodically, there's things that he says that are just callous. Like for instance, when he's talking to Collins and they're talking about, or he hears him talking about how Dana is almost ready to come back on the floor, that she's been cleared medically. And he says, oh, good, we need her on the floor. Instead of how is she doing? She should go home, take care of herself, whatever. He has repeatedly shown himself to be pretty callous, but I don't see this level of hate for him in social media. And that bothers me because she's not perfect. She's a flawed character, but I genuinely believe that a lot of the hate that she is getting is misogynistic.
Yeah, and I think too, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I also think if this were Dr. King instead of Dr. Santos, people would be having a different reaction because of the way they set up Santos to be this very brash, hardcore, mean a lot of the time person. I agree with what you're saying, but I also think that a lot of it, that people feeling the way they feel about Santos, and you'll hear, we'll get to some of that when we get into the feedback that we got. I think a lot of it has to do with how they set up Santos's character. We go in not liking her, so this just adds to that. And that's where people are frustrated. But I completely agree with what you're saying.
But again, I think that displays a lot of, and I think that was probably a choice by the writers to set up two very similar characters. And, Langdon's further down the road. He's actually a full doctor now, and he's supposed to be, the number 2 or number 3 in the ER, however that hierarchy works. But he is also brash and inconsiderate and sometimes selfish. And like we pointed out, he's cherry picking people. And there were these signs all along that he was who Santos thought he was. And I just don't see that level of hate for him. As a matter of fact, I've even seen quite a bit of discussion, and you can tell me if we want to talk more about this later on when we get to the feedback, but I've seen a lot of discussion of people saying that she shouldn't have done what she did. And, what was she supposed to do?
And yeah, I'd like to save it because when we get to our
poll, we're going to get to our
poll question and feedback, because a lot of this is going to come up.
Right. Well, so predominantly through all of the discussions that he was having, most of what I was feeling was vindication for Santos, personally.
Well, when Robbie first pulled her aside, I was genuinely scared for her because I didn't know how that was going to go down. But I applaud Robbie for approaching her and talking to her the way he did, not not pointing a finger. I love the way he said, part of my job is to make sure that everyone on this team is okay. And he flat out asks her, are you okay? And she tried not to tell on Langdon. She really didn't bust in there and be like, well, blah, 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 here's the problem. She really tried not to spill the beans, but Robbie pushed her, not in a bad way, but he pushed her like, look, if there's something going on in this ER, I need to know about it for the sake of all of us, not just for you, but for us as a team, because it is obvious Robbie really values that, one cohesive unit. And so I really think she did the right thing. It's not like he's just being a dick and going to tell on him for, him being mean to her. This man is treating patients while under the influence, and that's not safe at all. That's not safe for the patients. It's not safe for the fellow nurses, doctors, and everyone around him. So I applaud her for coming clean. But it was so evident that Robbie was not expecting what he got. I at first was like, really? This girl just opened up to you about something very serious, and the faces he was making. And I realized it wasn't Robbie upset with Santos. It was Robbie knowing, A, this has all been happening under his watch, and B, they are good friends. They are very good friends with each other. And now he has to go confront his friend. And the way Robbie approached Langdon in that second conversation, I think he already knew the answer. I think when she said that, I think it was like a light bulb went off in his head, and he's like, oh shit, he already knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, I read an article this week, and I apologize because I can't even remember what the source was, but I read an article where Noah Wiley and the actor that played Dr. Langdon, and again, I apologize, I don't remember his name, should have written it down, but they were talking about how they initially were going to approach this scene, because the actor, who was another one of these people, his mom was, I believe, an ER nurse, and his father was a paramedic.
Patrick Paul.
Okay, Patrick Paul. Becky and I were talking before the show about how many of the actors in this show have medical backgrounds. But at any rate, they were talking about how initially they had seen this scene playing out, and Noah Wiley had said that he thought they needed a stunt coordinator because he really saw it turning into an all-out brawl. But then the more he thought about it, the more he thought, no, they're friends. Like, this is more of a heartbreaking situation than it is anger situation, that primarily Robbie's feeling is one of just heartbreak and sadness and disappointment that somebody he trusted was capable of doing this, perpetrating this kind of a deception, but also that he missed it.
Yeah. I don't think the way he handled it was the way something like that should have gone down. I think there should have been a lot of other people present and whatnot, but in the heat of the moment, I don't know that I would have done anything different. Again, I said it's, he loves Langdon, and they're good friends, and he cares for him, and he's looking at someone who just absolutely let him down in one of the worst ways by practicing medicine while under the influence. And I don't judge him for that reaction. I think we're not done with this story. I think there will be, a lot of other people. Gloria is going to have to get involved. I think there's going to be a lot that's going to unfold. But I think his initial reaction was one of honesty and realness.
Yeah, I think you're right. In the real world, he probably would have had to gone to HR and had somebody else come in and handle the situation with him. But I think that would have been more boring TV. So I like that we got to see that first of Langdon's bravado kind of crumbling in front of your eyes as he realizes he's going to have to pay for the consequences of his actions. And then also just Robbie's heartbreak.
Langdon's, the biggest tell was that he never answered the question. He never said no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Robbie just got, but for all the ER fans out there, this is a storyline that aligns a lot with the ER storyline. And for those who watch the show, this story is very reminiscent of the ER episode Mayday, where Carter, played by our very own Noah Wiley, is confronted about his addiction after his stabbing. And I just wanted to say, addiction is sad. It's an awful, awful thing. And I think this is a reminder that you genuinely never know what's going on with the person next to you. And addiction can take hold of anyone. Addiction doesn't discriminate.
I think it's a much higher incident in the medical profession because of the trauma that they experience all the time, the fact that they have access to those medicines. I believe I mentioned a couple of episodes ago that my grandmother was a nurse in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and the government actually gave them meth to keep them alert in battle situations, and she never shook that. That's what eventually killed her. Alcohol and pill addiction is what eventually took her out, and she worked the entire time. And I don't know that anyone outside of her family even knew that she had this problem.
You just never know. I'm just going to close and say you mentioned this was probably his storyline several episodes ago, and I like a lot of our listeners that will hear about and feedback. I didn't want to believe it was true, and I hate it because one of the things I liked most about Langdon is what a great teacher he is, and how specifically he was such a champion for Whitaker and the way they work together. And I hate that this has happened to him, but I again applaud the writers of this show for bringing situations that are some people's everyday thing and bringing it to a platform that's going to get a lot of views. And I hope this sparks a really good conversation for somebody who might be watching and suffering from an addiction, or somebody who's watching and dealing with somebody who is suffering from an addiction. I hope that this helps them realize you're not alone in this situation. This is happening everywhere, and encourages them to go on and find help.
One of the things I love about the show is that it really demystifies doctors a lot. I think it does a really good job of showing that these doctors are human beings too.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they have regulars in the ER, I know we talked about that a while back, like what's our girl that we love that's in the wheelchair, Myrna and Louie, and some of these people. In a way, it reminds me of working in bars and restaurants.
Yeah.
We brought up a lot. And one of the things that happens when you are working a bar is that you do have these regulars, and sometimes they become almost like part of your family. And I like how this is showing that there is very little separation between the doctors and the patients. And sometimes the medical staff is the patient, like the nurse Dana. I like how it shows that these people don't see themselves as the good ones, the good doctors. And one of the things that Santos is having to have beaten into her over time is that you are not above these patients. They are not beneath you. We all are it's a microcosm, and it all kind of works together. And I love that, demystifying doctors and showing that they are just human beings too, that are susceptible to the same kind of failings and traumas and unfortunate, crappy boyfriend situations.
Yeah.
And this is a good example of that, of showing that they are not these godlike beings that can just never have temptations and never have failings of their own.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on into chart notes. We don't have too many this time, but the first one, the nurses discussing their injuries from other patients. We talked about this a lot in the last episode about the number of hospital staff that are abused by patients. And it was so sad how the one nurse was like, yeah, I had my jaw broken. And one of them's like, yeah, I had a tooth knocked out. Like, it just happens. And then, Robbie, they're addressing their concerns to Robbie. It's like, okay, great. This guy's name is out there and other hospitals are looking at him. But what are you going to do to protect us from the rest of the crazies that are out there? And, Robbie's like, I hear you. And then all of a sudden, Gloria comes busted in. And Robbie's like, my God, you're like a bad penny.
I was so glad she got stuck in the middle of all of that.
I love that. And Noah Wiley's, again, another great comedic moment is when he's like creeping away. Oh, that was chef's kiss. I just loved that whole moment.
I did too. I loved getting Gloria getting her butt handed to her by all of those nurses and staff, telling her, what are you doing to fix this problem for us?
Well, because Robbie's like, yeah, do you want to talk to them about how you denied my last 4 requests for stronger security measures? And da, 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 da. She's just like, but it was so nice to see her be on the receiving end of getting her butt chewed, because she's just always in Robbie's face with that, my God, you're like a bad penny. That was so fun.
Yeah.
Next point, Dana is still being a badass, running the ER from a gurney. I loved, you mentioned it earlier, but that snuggling moment when Collins crawled into bed with her. And I love that they put the bed rails up, because that's something you and I would have to do, because one or both of us is falling out of that bed if we don't.
Yeah.
And then Myrna having her back. say let Myrna at that asshole.
Amen. I loved that. I tried not to talk a lot about the episode before we get on the show, but I had to call you when I saw that scene because it just reminded me of our week. You know, we've had some challenges this week. And we've had that moment together where we're just dying laughing because what else are you going to do? You know, at least you have each other that you can turn to. And sometimes life is just fucked up.
Next point, Perla struggling with doing Dana's job.
Bless.
And her relief when Dana comes back. And I loved her flipping off Langdon when he makes the comment, thank God Dana's back. And Perla's just like, ooh.
Yeah.
I thought that was great.
Perla and Princess in this episode were some of my favorite parts when they were talking to each other in Tagalog. I read another article this week about those two actresses, and Perla is supposed to be a Filipino Muslim, which is not a very big minority, but it is a significant minority in the Philippines, and how she is not in real life, that actress is not a Muslim, but they wanted to have that representation in the show as well. And they were talking about how much fun they have speaking Tagalog to each other and what a good job the show is doing of showing that representation and just how fun those scenes are to film together where they're having their own private conversations that no one else can understand.
I love it. And then I love that they're giving us the subtitles.
Yes.
So that at least we can know what's going on.
Yes. When they were talking about how Langdon was the feisty hot one and that they're never worth the time. Not wrong.
I feel like they were asking him, do you think someone had sex with him? And they're like, oh, no.
It was Collins. He was talking to Collins and they said, do you think those two have had sex? And Perla goes, ugh, no. And then immediately Robbie comes up and they're talking and Princess says, what about them? And she goes, oh, yeah, definitely.
I love it.
When Princess threw her under the bus when they were looking for somebody to run the ER since Dana was down, she called her a bitch.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
I want to see more of that. I really enjoyed that.
We're also a bit of Perla and Princess.
For sure. So many good female friendships in this show.
Yeah.
I love that they show women supporting women so often.
Okay, next chart note, Teddy the burn patient. Oh my God. This was such heartbreaking storyline, but I'm just going to say what I wrote here. Teddy burn patient, yikes. Pregnant wife, Whitaker's compassion and bedside manner with both patient and wife was great. And I felt the sadness when Langdon told Whitaker the patient is likely to die. And then I wrote, I hope, in parentheses, if Teddy passes away, Whitaker and his wife get together. They're perfect for each other. He can help raise the baby.
Like a whole life for him. Oh, Becky. Well, it'll help us to move on from our grief if Teddy dies.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, if he does.
Just keep that door open, Whitaker. Let's just go to the farmhouse for dinner. Let's just see what happens.
Let's just see what happens. Forget you, Kim Scrub Nurse.
He needs a wholesome farm gal.
Anyway, so yeah, that was my take on that one.
You know, here's something I noticed about that storyline. Would they have really let her be standing there in the room while they were doing those complex medical procedures on her?
I question that. I do believe, yes, they would have allowed her to remain in the room, but they should, is they were all that burn victims, you have to remain in a very sterile environment. Right. So it seems to me that, yes, I think they would have let her stay if she wanted to, but I feel like the way they could have fixed that is all they had to do, put her in protective gear to protect the patient. I feel like that would have been a way to fix that. Otherwise, yes, I saw that as an error.
I'm going to ask if anybody out there is in the medical profession, if you could give us some feedback this week and let us know specifically that scene, because I had the same thought you did, that my understanding is that burn patients needed an incredibly sterile environment. That scene, but also when they were doing the procedure on the baseball kid's eye, you're doing like such complex work. I don't know that there's any real world scenario where with either one of those procedures, they would have allowed a civilian, so to speak, to be in the room. But I could be wrong. Like you said, what do I know from shit in medicine? Nothing.
I noticed it too, and I'm curious. So yeah, listeners, if any of y'all have any feedback on that, let us know. All right, so last point, just real quick. Every time they mention this morning, I am still shocked that this is still just one
Yes.
shift. It blows my mind every single time.
Yes, and which is another reason I get. I don't want to be only a Santos cheerleader here, but part of what frustrates me with how pissy people are about her is this is a young woman, and she's already shown some growth. That was all just this morning that she started her very first shift in this place. So the fact that she's already kind of course corrected to doing a little bit better with her personal relationships, I feel like she should get some grace for that. It's just been one day, and it's not even over.
It blows my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about final thoughts. Mandy, you first.
I don't know, man. I don't really have any final thoughts about this episode that I haven't already talked about. Just another great episode. Pretty nervous about what's going to happen. So their shift should be ending next in two episodes, right?
It's a 15-hour shift.
No, it's a 12-hour shift. It's a 15-hour series. So I'm starting to get a little concerned about what's going to keep them in the ER for those extra 3 hours. But
well, being in the ER, I don't imagine you clock in and clock out right on time. So plus, I think we'll probably get some outside stories. I think they might actually leave the hospital and we might get, some home life stories. That's my guess.
I hope so. I'm wondering if that kid is going to show back up and that there's going to be a situation where they can't leave because they're being held. But we'll see.
Well, something's going to happen with that kid. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I just want to say I have nothing negative to say. I don't know why that was so funny. I have nothing negative to say. Another amazing episode. I'm in awe of the show. Bravo. All involved. Bravo.
Well, I think it's funny because when have you and I ever been out of negative things we could say about any situation if we wanted to?
Well, I also think it's funny that it's like, I just want to say, like, I should be saying something one sentence, but 45 minutes later, I finished my point. That's what made me laugh about that.
Yeah, same. You know how we are now. Everybody out there listening, you're all held hostage to it.
You're welcome. Okay, so we loved it so much last week. We brought it back this week. Mandy is going to give us some trivia.
Well, it's not so much trivia, just a couple of things that might be interesting to anybody out there. One of the nerd moments that I enjoyed was when
Perla?
Yes, when Perla.
I knew it. I thought of you as soon as I saw that.
I knew you did too. God, we are psychically connected. When Perla mentioned that a Sisyphean labor is not a good thing, that it just means it's something that's never over and you have to do it over and over again. So Sisyphus, a man in Greek mythology who was punished by the gods for some pretty gross things, to have to roll a boulder uphill for eternity. As soon as he would get to the top of the hill, the boulder would roll back down and he would just have to start over and over again. When Robbie says one must imagine Sisyphus happy, where that came from is there is a philosopher named Albert Camus, who's a French philosopher. He had a philosophy about the nature of work. Instead of thinking of Sisyphus's punishment as just that, as a punishment, one must imagine that Sisyphus is happy doing what he's doing. And it's really about just the nature of work and how sometimes the work itself is the reward. So that's what he was trying to tell Perla there was, yes, it is often a thankless task that's never done. And then you're just going to have to do it all over again tomorrow. But you have to think of it as something that gives you joy or contentment.
Okay, cool.
And then something interesting that I learned about this week just through my reading is just what a philanthropist Noah Wyle is. You probably already know that. I didn't, but he has long been a human rights and animal rights advocate. He has actively supported Doctors of the World, Human Rights Watch, and Cover the Uninsured. He's also a vocal supporter of the Worldwide Fund for Nature and ADAPT, a disability rights group, which I thought was awesome.
You should follow him on Instagram.
Well, I've got 2 fake Noah Wileys already following me on Instagram and on Facebook. So I feel like I have a lot of Noah Wileys in my life already, but I will do that.
Well, the real one is way cooler. And the more you get to know him through Instagram, the more you'll understand why I love him. And completely not related to philanthropy, but so related to Noah Wiley. I don't know why. When that man says the F word, I love it.
I know, girl.
It's weird.
If you told me he was a nerd years ago, I would have understood your crush much better. But he is hotter now that he's old. I just think I wasn't attracted to him when he was Dr. Carter, but I think older Noah Wiley is pretty hot. I will give you that.
I just want him to come on our podcast and just say the F word over and over again.
Yeah, I feel like if he listens at all, he's going
to run so far from this podcast.
He's going to be more likely to send us a cease and desist letter than.
No, he won't.
No, not my baby, not my boo. Is that what you're saying, Becky?
He wouldn't dare. Oh God, I should knock on wood. Anyway, moving on before we really do get a restraining order. So news segment is something we're calling misdiagnosis. And this is where Mandy and I get to eat crow and talk about where we were wrong, which is our least favorite thing to do. So I'm going to let Mandy start.
Well, it's so rare.
This will only happen probably once every 17 years.
Or repeatedly every episode.
Right.
We talk a lot. Here's the thing. We are so often pointing out amazing, intelligent, wonderful things. We talk conservatively 14 hours out of every day. I mean, the numbers game, you're going to be wrong occasionally.
Something eventually.
Right. Anyway, so back to my crow eating. I was wrong last week. It is not the actress that plays Dr. Mohan, who is the beautiful Supriya Ganesh. It's actually Dr. Javadi, who is portrayed by Shabana Aziz, who is not an American. Supriya Ganesh is American of Indian descent. Shabana Aziz is actually Australian.
I love Australian accents.
Yeah, those ladies are, I'm sorry, so sorry that I mixed you up.
Well, what I'd really like to chastise you for is the fact that when I typed out that Mohan is apostrophe American, you didn't say it the way I typed it out.
Apologies. She did Merca.
That's
Mohan is from Merca.
American. Okay, so my misdiagnosis, and this is from several episodes back, and I meant to clarify it last week, because not last week, but the week before last, because one of the hardest texts that I ever have to send Mandy is I was wrong. And I was wrong when I made the comment when Santos was all concerned about the seizure medication they were giving that patient. And Mandy mentioned he might have a drug problem. And I said, no, that kind of medication is not something a drug seeker would want. And I was wrong. So there you go.
I'm going to record that part. Just can you snip that out when you're editing and just send me
I'll
the audio?
snip it out and
so that the world
nobody
will
will
you're going to
ever
insert
know.
you're going to insert right after my misdiagnosis. Well, thank you for being brave enough to admit that you were wrong, Mandy. I have nothing to add.
Oh my God, that's perfect.
You better not.
Okay, so next up we have show notes and news. I found a really cool article. I'm going to say the Pitt fan page found, and I clicked on it and read it. So thank you, Pitt fan page.
They're so good.
They are so good. So this is from Screen Rant, and Dan Zinsky wrote an article regarding the Pitt season 2 format, and then comments by Noah Wiley on the remainder of the season. So Zinsky writes, Wiley's latest foray into the medical genre is drawing positive comparisons to ER, and things might get even more dramatic as the Pitt season 1 heads into its final run of episodes. As Wiley recently teased, a big curveball coming, and this is via the AV Club. Wiley says, we left the window open for season 2 before getting renewed because creatively, we all feel like there's a lot more gas in this tank. All I can say is it's sort of interesting how we released 2/3 of the season to the press. The last third is like a different show. And what they mean by that is people get screeners where they get to see the episodes ahead. That's what he means by how they released 2/3 of the season to the press. And if anyone from Max is listening, we'll take some screeners. The last third is like a different show. So don't make any assumptions and be prepared for where the ride will take you. I'm really, really proud of it. John Wells directed the first one and he directed the last one. I think it's a very elegant ending. Zinsky goes on. Wiley then went on to talk about plans for the Pitt season 2, addressing whether the show will stick to its current format and floating the possibility of a time jump. Wiley says, Well, we joke that we stay with the format. Otherwise, it looks like we made a mistake. You don't want to admit defeat. If we kept with a 15-hour structure, there's something really hand in glove with having it mirror a work day or a work night. I think for dramatic purposes, it's more interesting to plot the course a little downstream so there's a dark period that people don't know what happened and we can play with that. This was a very impactful day. I don't know that anybody's going to have any more perspective the next day than they did in this day. I think we all need a little distance from it. So Zinsky goes on to say, Wiley's new remarks seem to confirm that producers will stick with the one shift format for the Pitt season 2. There will be some changes, however, as Wiley appears to tease a time jump. Such a move could allow for the cast to be shuffled, with some actors leaving and some climbing aboard, reflecting the turnover that would naturally happen in a facility like the Pitt. The future indeed looks bright for the Pitt, but the near term also seems promising, at least going by Wiley's remarks. What exactly he means by saying the last 3 Pitt episodes, Winky Fingers, feel different remains to be seen. It could be that the drama ratchets up, or it could be some kind of change up in style, or it could be something even more radical. So that got me excited. It's going to get cray-cray.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see how this is going to go. They're really, really good about keeping you on your toes.
Yeah. All right, so you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the street team. One of the things that I was really, really impressed by was the conversations they had about street medicine, how they actually go out and take medicine to the unhoused people in Pittsburgh. And I wanted to learn more about that and how realistic it was and how likely it was that you would have something like that in a city. And I learned a lot of really cool things, one of which has made me like Noah Wiley a lot, is that he does a great job. I was just so, because I've never even been to Pittsburgh. I don't think a lot about, I'm from the South, the state of Pennsylvania in general. I didn't know a lot of the history, and I think he does a great job of introducing a lot of the history of the city and some of the really important things that they have done for the world and the country.
Yeah, he really has.
Like ambulance or the Freedom House, ambulance guys. So this is another situation. The Freedom House, the ambulance guys. Becky, I am so sorry that the rest of you people don't say ambulance correctly. Anyway,
I'm so sorry. Please carry on.
this is another situation where a Pittsburgh native has been instrumental in changing the medical field as we know it. There is a doctor whose name was Dr. Jim Withers, who was a pioneer in street medicine. And they've actually even made documentaries about him. He was the son of a country doctor in central Pennsylvania, and he spent his entire childhood going out on house calls with his dad. And when he became a physician at Pittsburgh's Mercy Hospital, he started going out at night to minister to people experiencing homelessness in his city. And Dr. Withers said in an article shared with CBS News where they were talking about a recent documentary they made about his life, it opened my eyes up to how many people were out there, how sick they were. Pretty soon I realized I have to take a backpack with medicine and start treating people. And then nurses heard about it. They started volunteering, and pretty soon we had a health system under the bridges. But I encourage anybody that is interested in medicine for the unhoused, or really anything having to do with people having to deal with homelessness, to read up more about him, because much like with the Freedom House, his model and the work that he did has now gone into the world and many, many major American cities. And there are all kinds of places now that are doing work where they are taking doctors and med school students and really any other people that want to be involved. And they're going out and taking medicine to the unhoused people in their city.
That's so amazing.
I know I've talked in past episodes about Launchpad, which is an organization here in Nashville, works with unhoused youth overnight, and they also have some longer term options to help kids and find long-term housing and jobs. This was my first week to actually work a volunteer shift, because you have to do some training. It was so eye-opening, and it was so much fun. And it was also, just as a mom, kind of heartbreaking. Of course, you worry about what these kids are experiencing during the day. and not being able to protect them from it. But also it was just fun to sit and talk to these kids and hear about their lives. It's really rewarding. And I don't even like saying that, because I just don't think that people should get into volunteer situations because they think it's going to be something that is going to make them feel good and it's just a pat on the back.
Well, I don't think saying it's rewarding means that, you go in to do something to help others. That's why we volunteer. That's why most people volunteer. To say it's rewarding, I think, is just a benefit from doing that. I don't think it all sounds like that's why you go into it.
There are people that absolutely only want to be involved in volunteer situations if they can feel better about themselves. I agree with you that most people that stay in those situations for any length of time, it's not like that. And one of the things I like about this organization is that they want to stress to you that you are a servant in these kids' lives. You are not there to talk down to them, to try to quote unquote save them from anything. You're there to provide something or just an ear to sit and listen to them. You are another human. Remember, one of the points I brought up is what I love about this show is that it shows the hospital microcosm, that everybody, it feels like a family. The patients that are the regulars there care about the doctors. The doctors don't look down on even the good doctors. The guy Louis, that's the repeat alcoholic, they treat him with such care and dignity, and no one is above anyone else. And this organization, Launchpad, they are adamant that if you come into their space, you better not come in with this savior complex, because that is not what these kids need. That's what I loved from what I learned about the street medicine teams, that these doctors, they're going out and taking medicine to the people that are out there. They're not doing it from a perspective of some kind of savior complex. They're doing it because of their genuine love and compassion for all people. And so I really hope that anybody that's interested in this reads up on it, and you could probably find somewhere in your city that they would love to have you come out and lend a hand.
And we'll also, per usual, link that in show notes.
Good deal.
All right, let's get into feedback. Oh my God, the feedback. This is amazing.
Thrilled. We had so much good feedback this week. So Maureen wrote on Facebook Messenger, "Good morning. I listened to the show this morning while out walking my dog." Yay, Maureen. We love dog people here. "To respond to your request."
We asked Maureen directly to expand on her thoughts about Whitaker after she got to watch the episode. And this is what she said.
"My thought is Whitaker is one of the 700,000 unaccompanied youth in America. Whew, I believe he entered the world of homeless youth when his parents were separated from him due to death, jail, drugs, who knows. And he has been living in poverty since he was a young teen. He knows the streets. He knows where the camps are. He knows how to snitch food. He has to keep trading in the scrubs because he doesn't have any more of his own at home. He knows how to kill rats because he has killed many, but not on a farm. He is kind because of who he is and not because of how he lived. Yet, that also makes him so much better. I think he also has been performing CPR on friends over the years. Think drug overdose. Do you recall when his patient, the one who died, said his parents must be so proud of him and he got that faraway look in his eyes? That was the tell to me that he has no parents. He is by far my favorite character on the show. If he is indeed homeless, then he is a warrior. He navigated the system, he got good grades, got the student loans and scholarships, and got his internship all on his own merits. I'm a former CASA. I'm going to stop here. These are my words, not Maureen's. CASA is an organization for people who are child advocates in the legal system. They speak for the children. They stand up for their interests and speak for them in court.
Well, good for you, Maureen, for having been involved in that.
Absolutely. Back to Maureen's thoughts. These type of kids are real. They are everywhere. You don't even notice them because they're masters at blending in. It only takes a mentor or two along the way for them to fulfill their destiny. Thank you so much, Maureen. You just said what I was trying to say so much more succinctly and beautifully. I'm going to go back again, Becky, if you don't mind, and I want to talk a little bit about my experience this week at Launchpad. I think of myself as having seen quite a bit in life. I was shocked. One of the girls that was there this week is a sophomore in high school, and she is homeless. And she does have some special needs, but she is a child going to high school with other children. I wondered how many of her friends in school know about what she's experiencing. Another one of the young men that was there, his mother had to enter a domestic violence shelter, and he was This kid has never been in trouble a day in his life. Nothing, no tickets, no fights, no nothing. He's never been homeless before in his life. But now at 18 years old, he is not only experiencing homelessness, but he's having to live away from his mother and his siblings on the streets. There are young people there. As Maureen pointed out, a lot of these homeless young people have jobs. They're not who you think they are. It's not incredibly obvious. If you had seen most of these kids just walking down the street, you wouldn't have necessarily thought that kid is unhoused. So thanks, Maureen. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. She also shared some other stuff with us, but asked us not to share it on the podcast. So I do want to thank you, Maureen, for everything else that you shared. It really is amazing for us to get to know our listeners. And I hope you know how much we appreciate all of you. And just a reminder, if you do want to share some things with us, but you don't want it read on the podcast, just leave us a note and we'll be sure not to share those parts. So at Linda1541 wrote via YouTube after episode 9, I can't wait till Thursday. Thank you, ladies. Heart emoji. I always look forward to hearing you discuss the show with another heart emoji. And she also mentioned via Facebook, she told me about a YouTube channel called Dr. Mike. And he's an absolutely adorable young man. And he breaks down the first 2 episodes of The Pit. He explains the procedures and just how much the show got right. I did not know that existed. And I immediately Googled him and watched him. And I'm going to try to see if he might actually come on and do a podcast with us about one of the episodes. I'll add the link to his channel in show notes. But thank you, Linda, for sharing that one with us.
We got some great comments on our feedback post in The Pit with Noah Wiley on Mac's fan page via Facebook. Courtney Connor writes, "Damn it, Langdon," with a crying face emoji. "I can't wait to see Robbie deliver a baby on episode 11. Preview of the next episode played at the end of episode 10.
Next up, Alice Blunt writes simply, "Arg." Yep.
I feel ya.
That's about how I felt after the end of that episode.
Lexi Denny says, "My jaw dropped," all caps. "So frustrated with Langdon," with crying face emoji.
Marissa Ray writes, "My heart hurts for Langdon. However, do we all agree this episode is a nod to Love's labor loss and from ER?" And Love's labor loss, for those who don't know or watch ER, this is a defining moment for one of the Dr. Green, where it reveals his vulnerability and the psychological toll of practicing emergency medicine. The episode is praised for its realistic depiction of a high-stakes medical scenario and showcasing the potential for devastating consequences even when a doctor is trying their best. I could see where you might get a little bit of a feeling from that episode in this episode.
Phyllis Arnold Rand writes, "Wow, great episode."
I agree.
With 2 exclamation points. You're right, Phyllis. Agreed.
Dawn Morin writes, "My heart just sank for Langdon. However, Santos is going to start going around with her big mouth and telling everyone that she is the hero for Langdon being ousted. This will so bite her in the ass." And Debbie Nouse added to that, "I wonder how this plot line would have been received had Langdon not been so handsome. It seems like no one believed he could possibly be stealing drugs because of pretty privilege." I just thought that was an interesting contrast to the other moment. I'm very interested to see how it plays out with Santos. I think she's going to be affected harder than we think. I'm curious to see, but I like Debbie's question. If the roles were reversed, how would people feel about Langdon?
Mm-hmm. Linda Morrison says, "So much in this episode. Wow, I'll have to catch it again. But all I have to say for now is I love Whitaker." Oh, we do too.
And I did clarify, because Linda is amazing and she comments on YouTube and Facebook. It is the same Linda. I finally asked her, I was like, "Are you the same one?" And she said yes. I was embarrassed to have to ask, but I just wanted to make sure. So thank you, Linda, for being on all of her pages. It's really great. We appreciate you.
That helps us out a lot. We really do.
So Nancy Kelly says, "How great an actor is Noah Wiley." Amen, Nancy. That scene with Langdon was incredible. It was really good.
Christina Austin writes, "Here's hoping Langdon will get the help he needs like Carter did on ER. At this point, nothing Santos can do will make me like her other than her character leaving the show."
Rhonda Hayes Brown says, "Fantastic episode."
Beth Monteith says, "I know we're all wrapped up in how it ended, but did anyone else cheer when Javati told off that dad?" Yes, girl.
Yes,
we
that
did.
was great. Margaret Banks Stringer says, "Every episode is great." I could not agree more.
Yep, absolutely. Lori Ann Lang says they should have had HR there.
I love that.
She's not wrong.
So Tina Arnold writes, thought it was hilarious that McKay's ex is jealous of Mateo. It's that hair girl. We don't know the story yet, but all eyes went cagey when they found out who he was. Then Mateo, who told the young intern he does not date at work, seems to be setting up a date right in front of her, and she's going to end up babysitting. Okay, I was so glad you brought this up because I cannot believe we did not talk about Javati's absolute awkwardness and basically trying to invite herself into whatever McKay and Mateo had going on. Two, I thought that Mateo was offering to watch the kid while McKay went and got a foot rub or whatever it was they were doing. But you're right. I think Tina's right. They were going together, weren't they? But do you think it's as a date?
I definitely think Giovanni was jealous and she was trying to jump on in there because, girl, I love your persistence. I don't know if Mateo is interested in McKay like that or if he's telling the truth when he says he doesn't date people at the hospital. They may just be buddies, and I'm veering towards that.
That's what I think. That was a very good observation, Tina. Thank you for bringing that up.
Lisa Ware Woolridge says, let me say that Isa Briones, the actress who plays Dr. Santos, is great. Agreed. Portraying an unlikable yet somewhat admirable character isn't easy. She was also good in the Goosebumps series, where she played an entirely different type of character. I forgot she was in that. That's where I've seen her before. I agree, girl. I'm not saying she's incredibly likable. I'm just saying that I think that she's getting a little bit more hate than she deserves.
Christy Hoffman says, my mouth dropped open, ... My guy, Langdon, ? No way.
Carrie JS says, I'm wondering if next week's labor and delivery episode will be a positive or a negative experience. Thinking back on Dr. Green's horrific delivery in the ER, who do we think was the real father of Collins's baby? So two things here, Carrie. I'm glad you brought that up because I just thought of something that I meant to talk about at some point. Becky, did you see the look on Collins's face when she was talking to McKay about her son? And McKay had said, she wouldn't take anything back because it gave her Harrison. And the look when she said, you're very lucky, when Collins says, you are a very lucky woman, and just the look of anguish on her face when McKay, just broke my heart. That actress is so good. I don't know that we'll ever find out who Collins's baby's father is. I feel like that's something they're going to let go.
I told Carrie on Facebook, I go back and forth 2 or 3 times in every episode who I think, but I do want to talk about her comment on Dr. Green's horrific story. That was going back to what I was talking about earlier with the episode Love's Labor Loss that another listener brought up. I hope with all of my soul they don't go that route because that was, for those of you that don't know, and spoiler alert for a 25-year-old show, but Dr. Green got in way over his head with the pregnant lady and obstetrics wasn't showing up when they were supposed to. He ended up doing a C-section. They lost the mom. He gets sued. It was awful. It was just a very dark episode.
Yeah, because I think the delivery is going to be the burn victim's wife.
Yeah, we'll call her Whitaker's future wife.
That woman does not need any more tragedy, and I might be real mad at this show if she loses her husband and her baby. I don't know that there's enough Prozac to get me through that.
Well, hopefully they don't go that route.
Fingers crossed.
So from Reddit, Tough Zombie 421 writes, I saw the episode. It was awesome. Left me with even more resentment towards Santos.
Lazy 23 writes, I disliked the ending. I was really hoping Santos was wrong, not because I like Langdon, but she's been annoying from the get-go. She's abrasive, mean to the med students earlier in her shift, acts on her own several times, doesn't consult her senior resident, and like Langdon said, just not a team player. I also hate that she discovered something on her first shift at a new hospital, something that no one else caught. Otherwise, I enjoyed the episode. I like most of the other characters and enjoy the patient interactions and cases. Curious to see how they're going to round this out in the next few episodes.
Oh my gosh, y'all. All this feedback is absolutely amazing. We genuinely do love hearing from y'all. And a big thanks to the Pitt fan page and the Pitt with Noah Wiley on Max. We appreciate y'all allowing us to share our stuff on your pages and providing with such amazing content that we are able to share on the podcast. And I also want to thank the Reddit page, our r/the Pit. I'm new to Reddit, so if I should have just said the Pit, don't make fun of me. But they actually, over a week ago, recommended our podcast without us even knowing they were there. I think that was so great. And they're also being very kind to let us share our information. And they too do have some really great show content. So we're going to post links to all of these pages in our show notes. So please be sure to show them some love.
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, guys. Because as we've stated many times, this is a labor of love for us. We make nothing from this. We just genuinely enjoy spending time with each other and with you guys and talking about a really great show. Thank you so much.
Mandy came up with a great idea of doing a weekly poll. And after this episode, going through some of the feedback when I was putting them in our document for this week, Mandy, would you like to tell us what this week's poll is?
This week's poll is, do you think Santos did the right thing by telling Robbie about Langdon?
So interested to see the thoughts we get on it. So, and I'm wondering if after listening to the podcast, if any of those of you who are very angry with her for that choice might change their mind. So the poll will be posted once this episode is released. And if you all would like to leave us some feedback or say hello, you can email or send us a voice message as an attachment to what's on tonight 2@gmail.com. And please note that's what's on tonight and the number 2@gmail.com. You can visit our Facebook page where there will be a post for the next episode, and you can leave feedback in the comment section or send us a message through Facebook Messenger. We can also be found on Instagram at What's On Tonight Podcast with the number 2. We would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a review, comment, like, and or share on your podcast listening app of choice. We are learning that word of mouth goes such a long way, and you all have done such a great job of spreading the word about our podcast. I got a notification from Facebook today that we are 1 like away from 100. And that's because y'all in these fan pages are getting the word out. So please keep it up and just know how much we appreciate it.
Yes, again, thank you so much.
So how about we crawl up on that gurney with Dana and Collins and take a minute to talk about podcast recommendations, good TV, or anything else you'd like to share? What do you got, Mandy?
Really, the only thing I have this week is if you are a true crime fan like I am, you probably know who Lori Vallow Daybell is. She is that woman that killed her 2 children because she became convinced that she was basically a demigod, and so was her whack-ass boyfriend several years ago. Keith Morrison interviewed her on this week's Dateline. It's just as bananas as you thought it would be. It's going to infuriate you, but if you are at all interested in true crime, I highly recommend it. She is just as insane as you thought she was. And I really admire Keith for not getting up like 4 or 5 different times in that interview and slapping her.
All right. Well, for my podcast recommendations, over on Podcastica, Penny, Wendy, and Daphne are continuing their coverage of this insane season of Yellow Jackets. Their podcast, aptly named Yellow Jackets WTF, can be found on podcastica.com as well as Spotify and your other podcast listings app of choice. If you're watching Yellow Jackets and you watched Friday's episode, WTF was my response for like 20 minutes after seeing the end of that episode. So check out their podcast. It's some really great coverage. A big thank you to Mark and Pirate Core Entertainment for giving us this platform. Y'all, this is our first time recording this podcast by ourselves without Mark. So hopefully this podcast actually gets aired and you learn about what we've done. So thank you, Mark, for all the tutelage to help us get to this stage of being able to record like big girls. Please visit the Pirate Core website. It can be found on our Facebook page. There you can find our podcast as well as other podcasts like the Slay Lounge podcast with Billy and Will. And you can find other projects that Mark is working on.
Well, that wraps up our coverage of episode 10 of The Pit. We will be back next week where we will break down episode 11 titled 5 p.m.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And for those of us who might be struggling or going through some difficult times, just remember this is what you're going through, not who you are. So stay strong, everyone. I'm Becky.
And I'm Mandy.
We'll catch you next week when we grab the remote and see what's on tonight. Bye.
Justice for Santos.